The Silver Ring, the dusty town of Copper Creek, had seen better days. Much like everything else in the Arizona Territory of 1887, Samuel Sam Mackenzie rode his weathered horse down Main Street, his keen eyes scanning the ramshackle buildings that housed the town's dwindling population. Most folks had moved on when the silver mine played out, leaving behind only the stubborn, the desperate, and those with nowhere else to go. Sam fell into the first category. His ranch, the Double M, sprawled across 1,500 acres of harsh but beautiful land 30 miles north of town. He'd built it from nothing with his own two hands after the war, preferring the company of cattle and horses to people. At 35, he'd grown comfortable with solitude, finding peace in the rhythm of ranch work and the vast silence of the desert. But today's trip to town wasn't for supplies or cattle business. Word had reached him about Jeremiah Walsh's financial troubles, and more troubling still, what the man planned to do about them. Sam found Walsh outside the saloon, haggling with a group of rough-looking men. The conversation died when they spotted Sam approaching, his 6-foot frame casting a long shadow in the afternoon sun. "Mackenzie," Walsh nodded nervously, "didn't expect to see you in town. Heard you might be making some poor decisions, Walsh." Sam's voice carried the authority of a man accustomed to being heard. "Thought I'd see if there was another way." One of the strangers, a thin man with cruel eyes, stepped forward. "This ain't your business, cowboy. Walsh owes us money, and we're here to collect." Sam ignored him, keeping his gaze fixed on Walsh. "Where is she?" Walsh's shoulders sagged. "Inside." "Look, Mackenzie, I don't have a choice. These men loaned me money when nobody else would, and now there's always a choice." Sam reached into his vest pocket and withdrew a silver ring, simple but well-crafted. "This was my mother's, real silver worth more than whatever debt you've got." The thin man laughed harshly. "That little trinket ain't worth half what he owes." "Then you're a poor judge of silver," Sam replied calmly. "That ring came from a mine in Colorado. Pure silver, hand-forged, worth at least $200 to the right buyer." Walsh's eyes widened. $200 would clear his debt with plenty left over. "Sam, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Sam held out the ring. "In exchange, the girl comes with me, as my ward, under my protection." The cruel-eyed man started to protest, but his companion, clearly the leader, studied the ring with interest. After a moment he nodded. "Deal, but if that ring ain't worth what you claim, we'll be coming for both of you." "It is," Sam said simply. An hour later, Sam sat on his horse outside the saloon waiting. Walsh emerged first, followed by a girl who looked to be about 16. She was small and painfully thin, her dark hair hanging in tangled waves around her face. Her dress was little more than rags, but her eyes, deep brown and alert, missed nothing as they took in her surroundings. When those eyes met Sam's, he saw no fear, which surprised him. Weariness, yes, and a sharp intelligence that seemed to catalog every detail about him. But no fear. Walsh approached, the girl walking silently beside him. "This is Elena," he said quietly. "Her folks died of fever 2 years back. She can't hear, Mackenzie. Born that way. Makes things difficult." Sam dismounted and approached slowly, the way he would a skittish horse. When he was a few feet away, he stopped and touched his chest, then pointed to his mouth, speaking clearly, "Sam." Elena watched his lips carefully, then copied the gesture, pointing to herself. Though no sound emerged, her lips formed the word Elena. Sam nodded and smiled, the first genuine smile Walsh had seen from the taciturn rancher in years. Sam pointed to his horse, then to himself, then made a gesture toward the road leading out of town. Elena understood immediately and nodded. The ride to the Double M took 3 hours. Elena rode behind Sam, her arms wrapped around his waist for balance. He could feel her tension gradually ease as they left the town far behind, heading into the open country where the only sounds were wind and the steady rhythm of hoofbeats. The ranch house was modest but well built, with a wide porch and windows that caught the last of the afternoon light. Sam helped Elena down from the horse, then gestured for her to follow him inside. The interior was spartanly furnished but clean. Sam had always kept a tidy house. Finding order in his surroundings helped maintain peace in his mind. He led Elena to a small bedroom off the main living area. It had been intended as a guest room but had never been used. From a chest in the corner, Sam pulled out clothing that had belonged to his sister Mary before she'd married and moved to California. The dresses would be too long, but they were clean and whole. He set them on the bed, then pointed to Elena and to the clothes, hoping she'd understand. She did, and for the first time something that might have been relief flickered across her face. Over the following days, Sam and Elena developed their own language of gestures and expressions. Sam had always been a man of few words anyway, so the adjustment came naturally to him. He showed her around the ranch, introducing her to the horses and cattle, the chickens and the old dog, Rusty, who took an immediate liking to her. Elena proved to be a quick learner and eager to help. She took over the care of the chickens without being asked, and Sam often found her in the barn, brushing the horses with a gentleness that spoke of natural affinity with animals. It was watching her with the horses that gave Sam an idea. On a bright morning 2 weeks after Elena's arrival, Sam led a gentle mare named Daisy into the corral. Elena watched from the fence as he saddled the horse, her expression curious but cautious. When he finished, Sam walked over to her and held out his hand. Elena hesitated for only a moment before taking it, allowing him to lead her into the corral. Sam had trained many horses in his time, and he approached teaching Elena to ride with the same patience and consistency. First, he had her stand beside Daisy, letting the mare get used to her scent and presence. Then he showed Elena how to run her hands along the horse's neck and shoulder, how to read the animal's mood through the position of her ears and the tension in her muscles. Elena's natural intuition with animals served her well. Within days she was confidently mounting and dismounting, and by the end of the week she was walking Daisy around the corral with Sam holding a lead rope. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning, when Sam arrived at the corral to find Elena already there, standing beside Daisy with a bridle in her hand. She looked at Sam and pointed to herself, then to the horse, then made a motion that clearly indicated she wanted to try bridling the mare herself. Sam nodded and stepped back, letting her work. Elena's movements were careful but confident as she slipped the bit into Daisy's mouth and worked the headstall over the mare's ears. When she finished, she looked at Sam with an expression of quiet pride. From that day forward, Elena's progress accelerated dramatically. She learned to trot, then to canter, her natural balance and fearlessness serving her well. Sam taught her to read the land, to spot the subtle signs that indicated water or dangerous ground. He showed her how to move with the horse, rather than against it, how to become one fluid unit with the animal. But more than just riding, Sam was teaching Elena something far more valuable: freedom. For the first time in her life, Elena could move across the landscape with speed and independence. On horseback, her deafness became irrelevant. She could outride the wind, could disappear into the vast expanse of desert and mesa, could go wherever her spirit called her to go. Sam watched her transformation with quiet satisfaction. The thin, frightened girl was filling out, her cheeks gaining color from sun and wind. But more importantly, the weariness in her eyes was being replaced by confidence and joy. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Elena surprised Sam by reaching over and taking his hand. When he looked at her, she pressed her other hand to her chest, over her heart, then pointed to him. The message was clear: gratitude, affection, perhaps even love of the kind between family members who have found each other against all odds. Sam squeezed her hand gently and nodded. He understood. As the months passed, Elena became as essential to the running of the ranch as Sam himself. She had a gift for anticipating what needed to be done, whether it was spotting a calf that had wandered away from its mother, or noticing when one of the horses was favoring a leg. Her silence, which others had seen as a disability, gave her an almost supernatural awareness of her surroundings. But it was her riding that truly set her apart. Elena had developed a partnership with Daisy that bordered on the mystical. The two moved together across the range with a grace and speed that took Sam's breath away. Elena could guide the mare with the slightest shift of weight or touch of her hand, and Daisy responded as if reading Elena's thoughts. Word of the deaf girl who rode like the wind began to spread among the scattered ranches and towns of the territory. Some spoke of her with wonder, others with suspicion. There was something uncanny about the way she seemed to communicate with animals, the way she could disappear into the landscape and reappear miles away as if she'd traveled on the wind itself. Sam paid little attention to the talk. What mattered to him was Elena's happiness, and she had found that in abundance on the Double M. She had grown into a young woman of remarkable capability and quiet strength, as comfortable in the saddle as most people were on their own feet. One day in early spring, nearly a year after Elena had come to the ranch, Sam was working in the barn when he heard hoofbeats approaching fast. He looked up to see Elena riding hard toward the ranch house, Daisy's sides heaving with exertion. Elena dismounted in one fluid motion and ran to Sam, her face flushed with excitement. She pointed toward the eastern range, then held up 4 fingers and made the sign they'd developed for cattle. Then she cupped her hands around her eyes like binoculars and shook her head. She couldn't see them clearly. Sam understood immediately. Rustlers. 4 of them, trying to make off with Double M cattle. Sam was already moving toward his horse when Elena caught his arm. She pointed to herself, then made a sweeping gesture toward the north, then brought her hands together in a pincer motion. She wanted to circle around and cut off the rustlers' escape route while Sam approached from the south. Too dangerous, Sam said, though he knew she couldn't hear him. He shook his head firmly. Elena's eyes flashed with determination. She pointed to Daisy, then to the rough terrain to the north, and Sam knew she was right. She and Daisy could navigate that rocky ground far better than he and his larger horse could. And if the rustlers escaped to the north, they'd disappear into the maze of canyons that honeycombed the landscape. Against his better judgment, Sam nodded. Elena smiled and leaped back onto Daisy. She touched her heart, then pointed to Sam, a gesture they'd developed that meant be careful, then wheeled the mare around and galloped toward the northern range. Sam watched her go, a mixture of pride and worry churning in his chest. Then he mounted his own horse and headed south. The plan worked perfectly. Sam approached the rustlers from the south just as Elena and Daisy appeared on the ridge above them, cutting off their escape route. Caught between the two, the rustlers had no choice but to surrender. As Sam led the captured men toward town, Elena rode beside him, and he couldn't help but marvel at what she'd become. The frightened girl he'd rescued with a silver ring had transformed into a confident young woman who could hold her own in any situation. She had found her place in the world, not despite her deafness, but in harmony with it. That evening, as they once again sat on the porch watching the sunset, Sam reflected on the strange turns life could take. He'd bought Elena's freedom with his mother's ring, intending to give her a safe place to live. Instead, she'd given him something far more valuable, a sense of family, of purpose beyond his own solitary existence. Elena must have sensed his mood, because she reached over and took his weathered hand in her smaller one. When he looked at her, she smiled and pointed to the vast landscape spread out before them, then to herself, then to him. Then she opened her arms wide, as if embracing the entire world. Sam understood. This was their home, their life, their freedom. Together, they had built something good in this harsh but beautiful land. Elena had learned to ride and run free, but she had also learned something even more important, that freedom shared was freedom double. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Sam squeezed Elena's hand and smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, new opportunities to run free across the boundless landscape they both loved. And they would face them together, the loner rancher and the girl he'd rescued with a silver ring, who had in turn rescued him from a life of solitude. In the distance, a coyote called to its pack, and Daisy whinnied softly from the corral. Elena couldn't hear these sounds, but she felt their vibrations in the earth, in the air, in the rhythm of life itself. She was part of it all now, the land, the animals, the endless sky. She was free, and she was home. The silver ring had been well spent indeed.